Neptown Tuner here. I spent about 9 years at the Audi dealership, worked my way up to Master Tech, and I was also the heavy line tech working on all the big repairs. So I'm here to spread some knowledge around. You should hit the subscribe button. One thing I want to tell you about right now is installing pistons, piston rings. You gotta have piston rings. I remember being a fresh 15-year-old, finally being able to save enough money, $500, to get my 1984 Gorelli 50cc moped. I tinkered on that thing, man. It was a hot rod to me. Probably did stuff that I shouldn't be doing. It would probably still run to this day if I didn't tinker on it. But I messed it up, buddy. I took the thing apart and I put it back together without the piston rings. And guess what? It never ran again. So piston rings, I learned from then on, are pretty important. Since then, I've learned a few more things about installing them. So let me actually tell you what tool to use and what tool not to use. Let's look at it. We've got these rings on this piston. We've got these compression rings, and they're pretty tight. We have to have a special tool to press these rings together and then allow the piston to slide into the bore easily with those rings compressed. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the first tool right here, right? This is just a sleeve. You would turn the sleeve with a quarter drive ratchet on this one. You wanna release it, you just hit the little button here. It's just a ratchet mechanism. It's simple, it's easy, and it's effective. It's simply slide it in, ratchet it down, and that's what compresses those rings. Now you want to have some oil, some lubrication. You don't want to over tighten it. You can see how well used this sleeve is. Let's show you the next tool. The next tool is a plier device. So you're gonna have to get, this isn't necessarily one size fits all. You're gonna have to get a few different sleeves for your different size pistons. Hence these pliers. We've got all these different adapters, and it seems very, very convenient. So you could just, instead of having this big bulky compressor right here, you can just take the piston. Of course, it would have a connecting rod on it, but you would just find the right collar and you would slide it on there, and you're gonna just compress it by putting this tool on it. Right, that's pretty self-explanatory. The tool just goes right in here. Let's just double, while I'm doing this, let's just double check if there's any, the instructions are probably in here. This is a very old box, but let's see. It just says installs pistons from 2 7/8 to 4 3/8. So we got millimeters for you other people other than Americans, which we should really get with the bandwagon, I agree. So it can ratchet down and lock, which that's very handy and nice, and it seems like it's quick action, you know. So just everything so far is seeming really nice. All right, but there's no necessarily, it's not necessarily any instructions. So here's the thing I want to warn you about, and this makes me absolutely cringe because I used this one time without inspecting it. I just trusted it. I used it by, I just trusted it. So let's pull out some of these collars. Any of them. Now let's take a close look. Those welds, those tack welds are raised. I mean, if you can see them like that, they're not flushed out. Now let's get a better view of that. Thing was supposed to be good. It's KD Tools. It's from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But as you can see, all of these collars in here, there's some of them have not been used, like this one right here. Clean paint, but like for instance, this one has been used. You see the marks on there? And you're gonna see that just like this. Even if you oil them up like you're supposed to, you're still gonna bring it down a little bit. Now, this is gonna be hard to show on the camera, but do you see that those raised dots? And they've actually been scraped up a little bit as well. I mean, you're picking it, I'm seeing it on the camera. I was gonna see if I could scratch a screwdriver on it or show you how elevated those little spot welds are, but that's how they connect these pads right here, is with spot welds. I'm trying to zoom here. And it's the same thing right here. And the pads really aren't that impressive how they put them on at all. Now let's take a look at another one, because they're all the same thing. This one has not been used, but do you see how those bumps just protrude out like a ridiculous amount? It's absolutely mind-blowing that they would allow a tool to be sold that is so ignorant. Look at those bumps. Those protrude out. Now, let me show you another one where it's been used. Do you see how it's all mashed up and flattened out? The piston ring has to scrape across those nubs. That is absolutely cringeworthy. Absolutely cringeworthy. Now, do you want to put your pistons in your engine with this? No. Now, I suppose if you wanted to, you could clean up the nubs with a half moon file. You see it's flat on one side, half moon on the other. That's very nice to pick up a file like this. Also, a round file is nice. And everyone's got to have the flat file. But the half moon is much better choice than even the round one in this particular case, where you could take your time and clean those burrs up, but then you might cut through so much that these little pads might just fall off. So just don't buy it. And like I say, maybe other brands do it better, but just don't mess with it. That's my opinion.